Okay, well, we'll get things started off with Maniac Cop 3, Badge of Silence from 1993. It centers around, the story centers around a female cop who's gunned down and wrongly accused of using excessive force in a hostage rescue attempt. Well, in some ways she is, in some ways she isn't. And Maniac Cop returns from the dead once more to seek revenge, destroying everything and anyone that stands in his way. And for some odd reason, it seems he wants a bride for who the fuck knows, but
Bride of Maniac Cop.
Yeah. This movie's clearly not as good as the first two. And there were a whole bunch of production issues, it seems. I believe Bill Lustig and who was it, Larry Cohen, who I think both of them directed and wrote the first two movies. And they started off with this movie. They filmed like half of it, and then they dropped everything and said, "Screw it, we're not going to finish this movie." And then I think the producer had to step in and kind of finish it himself. So he ended up filming a whole bunch of scenes to kind of finish off the movie, and I think they also spliced in just a little bit of scenes here and there from the second movie just to kind of pad it out. Yeah, the story is a little sillier. There's not a whole lot to it, and we talked about Chrome Skull Laid to Rest 2 a couple weeks back, and how that story kind of ruined that movie. I think the story for this one doesn't necessarily help this movie, but it doesn't have that much of an impact on how enjoyable it is either. It's just a bit of a stupid subplot that they've added. Anywho, I think it's an enjoyable movie. It's a little more generic, just a little more of a standard slasher with a lot less detail than the previous movies have. But yeah, I still think it's okay. I don't mind watching it. It's not great, but it's okay. What did you think of this one?
I think it's a bit enjoyable. It's not necessarily a good movie though. My main problem is I don't think there's many likable characters here, and the whole thing bringing Cordell back by voodoo. And he could have said, he could have stayed dead if he wanted to, but he chose to came back. I don't know. I didn't care for the whole thing. I don't think it was explained particularly well. The story wasn't terrible. It was okay. I get why he wants to sort of help defend the honor of this cop, just like him, he views this cop as being unfairly treated, and I get that he wants to try to protect her and keep her safe, and then I guess make him a bride or make her a bride. So I don't know. I get it, but at the same time I didn't really care for it that much.
I noticed in your review that you put on the website, you made a big point about cops and corruption and.
Yeah, so this is just a small thing, and I'm not trying to I actually intentionally left that alone. But my whole thing with this is the beginning the text at the beginning says that he was framed and then thrown into prison. And my thing was that we know he was an abusive cop. We saw evidence of it, so he obviously deserved to be in jail. Of course, there's some people who might believe the police can do what they need to do to criminals, but Cordell's character obviously wasn't a good character. I appreciate he fought the corruption of the city, and that's a good thing, but he was also, police brutality poster boy, so that's a problem. And same thing with the female cop in the movie. What's her nickname? Maniac Kate, I think. She got that nickname for a reason. And I know the cops laugh about it. Hey, let's just abuse potential, criminals. But I'm assuming she did some iffy things in her time. And though like I say in my review, she had every right to shoot when she shot the individual, who was trying to kill her. But she was using an illegal firearm and illegal ammunition. So even if she had the right to shoot, she should also still be in jail. So I don't know. Let's see. It didn't bother me the first few movies. I thought what's the guy's name? Bruce Campbell's cop character in the first movie. I thought he was okay. But this movie, I couldn't stand any of the characters. then, especially once you get to the whole like love story, halfway through the movie, that's just, in my opinion, somewhat cringe-worthy. So I don't know, it didn't do much for me. It's not like I hate the movie. I still think it's obviously below average, but it's not terrible. It's just a far cry from the first two movies, and the second movie's not even particularly good, but it's definitely the lowest of the three.
Hey, the second movie is good.
It does have that one guy in it though, so.
In a technical sense, you're probably right. They can be labeled corrupt. I guess the way I see it, though, and I know there's different levels to this, but I think a lot of what they do, and I guess we're assuming that they do other things to criminals who may not deserve it, but we don't see that, and we don't really know. But I think a lot of what they do is still whatever rules they break or whatever they've done to, apprehend a criminal or do whatever. It seems more in line with trying to just, serve justice than to do things for their own benefits.
I would not deny that in the moment, that's probably true in many cases. But keep in mind this, God, I forget the actor's name. He's such a decent actor too. Robert Davi. I mean, he like tortured a guy in a hospital. It's not like he was trying to capture him. The guy was, he was not moving anywhere, and he's just torturing him just because he's a cop and he's pissed off. I mean, that's and then his doctor like starts hitting on him like 5 scenes later. It's like, oh God, it's just problematic. It's not a very good attitude for a doctor, in my opinion.
Well, to be honest, that guy deserved to die. I have very little sympathy for someone who goes into with a firearm to basically rob a pharmacy just to get their fix. To put people's lives at risk. He deserved to die, to be honest.
Well, if you agree with the death penalty, yes.
And the fact that he can sue the city and get millions of dollars. That just rubs you the wrong way.
His lawsuit, from my understanding, was pretty flimsy, though. I mean, he might have been able to do so, but from my understanding, there's no way that lawsuit ever would have actually worked, especially once that video got out.
Yeah, probably not. But I just hate to see obviously bad guys get away.
And I feel like an argument could be made that it's not like these cops were necessarily the good guys. I know that in the framing of the story, they were the protagonists, but I mean, some of their behavior was, in my opinion, pretty antagonistic, and it's not necessarily uncommon for some police officers, but like I said, that's not the main reason why I dislike this movie. There was more to it, but it did rub me the wrong way.
And based on your review, you didn't seem to care too much for the fire stunt at the end.
See, I thought it looked cool for the first minute. I thought it was cool, but then it kept going and going. I mean, is it just me? Was it too long?
Well, kind of, but I think that's the part actually that makes it cool, because you rarely ever see a scene in a movie with someone on fire for that long. And I know it's ridiculous, but at the same time, we're talking about essentially a zombie cop, so it doesn't bother me too much that the car didn't blow up straight away or anything like that.
Well, I did say straight away, but I think eventually something would have happened. But maybe they make cars differently in that city than they do here. I mean, I don't know. I think I also say this in my review. If you like the first 2 Maniac Cop movies, you'll probably be okay with the third one. I just think it's pretty obvious, and I feel like I'm definitely not alone in this, that it's obviously the weakest of the three, and I suspect that if they remade the movie, I think they're talking about a remake, but I think they've probably been talking about it for years. But if they ever do remake it, I suspect even if that comes out, this will still be one of the worst Maniac Cop movies.
Yeah, that remake talk's been going on for ages, and suddenly it's happening, and then it's not happening, and
that's the joys of remakes.
Yeah.
That one scene, this is toward the end, like they're trying to break out of the hospital, where the guy is like hiding on the gurney and then just gets up and shoots, you know, like that's pretty fun. And sort of like an action oriented way, but I enjoyed that. I wish there was a little, more pop to it, but I enjoyed that. That was a fun time.
Yeah, there's a couple of decent scenes in the movie. Anywho's, yeah, like I've been saying, I think it's fairly enjoyable, but it's clearly the worst of the three movies. And my ratings for the first two, I give both of them a 9 out of 10, and so for this one, I give this one a 7 out of 10. So there is a clear drop off in terms of the quality of the movie. But overall, it's still okay. It's still enjoyable enough for me.
Giving Maniac Cop a 9 out of 10 is it's an amazing move. So this movie, it's okay. It's below average. Don't get me wrong, but it's enjoyable, and I can sort of see myself watching it again in the future. But there's so many other movies I'd much prefer to watch over this. I think there's decent things in it. I just think there's a problem with unlikable characters, somewhat unlikable situations, and I feel like the whole like voodoo brought back to life type thing wasn't really touched on as much as it probably should have been. Like if they had explained why he had, switched from protecting this cop to wanting the cop to be his like wife type. I don't know. I just didn't get it. So I'll give this movie like a 5.5, and I'll round it up to a 6, which is still below average, but it's entertaining, and you can probably watch it a few times to enjoy it.
Yeah, it's got a few fun kills. Nothing all that memorable, but yeah, I think, like I said, if you enjoy the first two, you're going to have at least an okay time with this. It's not going to blow you away, but
I mean, honestly, we're looking like the early '90s, and there weren't really that many slasher-like movies in the early '90s. So if you have no other choice, you might as well go with it.